Looking back, I was very insecure in my body. I feel like my life is very normal and routine, but actually it's probably not. I've lived out of a suitcase most of the last 6 or 7 years. So I wasn't really happy in myself. I feel like I can actually make an impact at home. I feel like here I'm just a number in a system, but I feel like when I'm at home, I can actually have a positive impact on people's lives. To go back in my head to 2015 when I was working at a little desk next to my bed, and my goal for the year was to save up enough money for a laptop. So now we just went to a villa that was like something out of Beverly Hills. It is very that type of thing actually kind of blows my mind.
This is the Future Fitness Lifestyle, the podcast for high achievers who want to take control of their long-term physical and mental well-being. I'm Matt Cooney, and every week we break down the habits, mindset and strategies to build lasting health, energy and strength without sacrificing your career, family or lifestyle. No quick fixes, no fads, just real sustainable results. Because the choices you make today determine the future you step into. Ready to level up? Let's dive in.
Matt, welcome back to the podcast. The tables have been reversed. We're now sitting in opposite seats. I don't know which one is the hot seat, the interviewer or the interviewee.
Definitely feels weird. I'm used to like introducing it and also asking the questions, but now I'm like, no, what are you going to ask me?
So, on that, so then, how are you actually feeling about that, being in the hot seat, about being interviewed?
Nervous, excited, maybe a bit scared of what you're going to ask me. Yeah, I'm so used to actually being the interviewer. I suppose it's a nice change.
Yes, and it's good to have a mix of emotions with this. I think that kind of leads me into kind of the first question I'm going to have. I know you as a friend, I know you as a coach too, but I suppose a lot of people might not know your story and I suppose the direction of your life that has taken you here today. I think it'd be a nice insight for people to get to know you more on a personal level behind the screen, behind the camera, who you are behind as a coach. So if you were to reflect back and tell us more about your own journey and I suppose what it is that has gotten you here today, and if you want to tell us more about that.
Yeah. Where do I start or how far back do I go? First thing people might not know is that I was actually born in Australia. Parents are Irish. They moved to Australia in the 80s. I was born in Australia, went to primary school in Australia, moved to Ireland when I was 13. So, moved to Ireland when I was 13. Obviously, bit of a culture shock coming from, grew up in Perth around very hot weather, beaches. Never, I had barely ever wore a pair of pants in my whole life. And then 13, I was thrown into the Christian Brothers, given this woolly jumper, black shoes, and suit pants. And I honestly thought it was a joke. I was like, there's no way I'm going outside or to anywhere with this on. And went in the first day. I also had like a mushroom type haircut, like a big blonde
Yeah.
surfer. I got slagged about that the first day, and I remember I was like, right, I had an Australian accent at the time. Lost my Australian accent within 6 weeks. Didn't shave my head, but got the haircut like everybody else, and just tried to fit in. Yeah, obviously moved to Ireland. Always loved sport growing up. It was kind of my anchor, and in a way, I would say it maybe saved me. But got teenage years, bit rebellious. Again, probably just trying to fit in, drinking, drugs, all that type of stuff. But I was always good at sport, so I always had that to lean on and go back into. Finished school, typical at that time as well. Tried to like leave at 16, get an apprenticeship. Thank God my mother, there wasn't many things that she didn't kind of let me do. That was one of them. She's like, you're not leaving, you're getting an education. So went to finish school, took a year out, ended up working in a factory for a year, doing shift work. Realized I need to go to college and get an education. That year it actually kind of taught me a lot. First time working full time, and I was like, right, I'm going to college. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Studied leisure and recreation management, and that's where in first year college I fell in love with the gym. Yeah, so that was kind of started me into fitness and health. Honestly, I had no idea. When I look back, it's kind of funny. It's like everything you could have done wrong, I done. It was like back then I was looking at bodybuilding.com, all these magazines, and it was just random bits of information. I just hadn't a clue. And the the goal for me was six pack. There wasn't, I love to say it was health or anything. It was just looking back, I was very insecure in my body. Just didn't like my body image, I suppose. And I thought if I could just get this six pack or build this muscle, that it would sort my life out, which I obviously realized that it didn't. That it doesn't magically make everything better. But yeah, went to college. After college, started working. During college, started working in a gym part time, and then continued, went full time after college. Realized I wasn't really happy in myself. I thought the answer was externally to move. I was like, it's Ireland. It's my environment. There's no opportunities here for fitness. That was the story I told myself. So I was like, right, I'm going to move to Australia, back to Australia because I lived there. Moved back, told myself I'd take a job in construction for a couple of weeks to get a few pounds, save a few pounds. That 2.5 years later was in the same job, telling myself most Fridays, like, okay, this is the week now. I'm gonna make that change. Never did until unfortunately my first cousin, I lived with him, Pierce, in Australia. He unfortunately passed away, and that day, that whole thing just changed my life. So from the day after that, I remember waking up with the words "life is too short" just running through my brain. Actually, it was like someone was screaming at me. And then from that day, I decided I was moving back from Australia. I was going to move back to Ireland, start doing PT, which is all I always knew I wanted to do that. That was my passion, was to help people. I probably reached out to you then a couple of months later. I was like, do you want me to train you? You're going on holidays. So I kind of created a little plan, 6-month plan for myself, ended up traveling all around Asia, a few different places, moved back to Ireland, started doing PT. Within, from that day that I woke up with Life's Too Short, within like 7 months, I was living in a different country, full-time job, personal training, online clients. I traveled all over, met Eve, who's still with me 10 years later. And so, yeah, that within, I say a year, but actually probably 7 months, I've probably achieved more in my life than I did the other 25 years before. And that was because I stopped being afraid and I just took the chance to, yeah, and that was 2015. I could keep going, but from here, what's that? That was 10 years ago. That was the start of MC Future Fitness, and yeah, here we are, 10 years later, still going.
Still going, and I think that's quite an incredible story. You've had lots of different movements within your life. I think, and your life has taken many different types of directions, even at such a young age. You know, you talked about the culture shock of moving country, and I suppose what that would have done for you in obviously leaving your friends behind, leaving your whole way of living to move to Ireland, to new people, and as I said, new culture, and the impact that had on you. But I think from hearing your story, there was always something within you that kept you maybe grounded in that. And obviously, you spoke about the passing in Pierce and the impact that that had on you. When you decided to make that decision, was there any fear behind you about, hey, you woke up and you're like, life is too short? Excuse me. When you heard that, did you feel any fear behind it, even though I could feel the energy from you was like, this is what I have to do? Was there still, were you still experiencing maybe some doubt within that, but yes, you experienced that, but you still went ahead and did it?
Yeah, there was definitely fear and doubt because that's what was stopping me from doing it anyway in the first
Mm,
place. But I always knew there was something more for me.
okay.
I knew, and even at times in my life when I was going down the wrong path, I always knew that I would, there was better, that there was something to come. Like I always remember, even in school, my mother would tell me this, that I was hanging around, I wouldn't say the wrong crowd. We weren't the best students. And the year head told my mother, he was like, Matt's not like the rest of them. He's like, he'll be fine, but he's just being an idiot. And I kind of knew that as well. I always knew I'm like, I'm not really meant to be here, but I'm doing it. And that's the same even in Australia. I knew even in the job in construction, I'm like, I noticed more, but I was always just afraid. And even I remember having a conversation before I left, because a lot of people when I left Australia, they were kind of like, "Why are you moving away?" You know.
Mm.
And I remember Donald White. I was having a conversation, and he was kind of asking me that. He was questioning me. I was like, I feel like I can actually make an impact at home. I was like, I feel like here I'm just a number in a system, but I feel like when I'm at home, I can actually have a positive impact on people's lives. So that's what kind of I always knew that I was capable of doing that. And yes, there's still fear, still doubt, but it wasn't going to hold me back because, again, that experience just showed me life is too short.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from you, I think, is probably what a lot of listeners will probably experience in life is outside noise and the pressures and the influence that the outside world can have on you. But there was something inside in you that chose to listen to you and not to listen to the outside world. I suppose if you were to give one bit of advice on people listening to that, how do they follow that instinct, that feeling that they have inside of them, and to kind of put the blinkers on and like shut out the outside world where they're all telling them that why are you doing this? No, you can't do this. Because I suppose growing up, the narrative that we kind of would have heard was like follow the same path that everyone goes on.
Yeah.
It sounded like you chose to take a different path. What's one bit of advice that you would give people listening to this to help them, as I said, shut out that outside noise and listen more to themselves?
We say that concept be different in
Yes.
our MC Future Fitness. I kind of always knew I was different as well. And even when you look at it with a lot of people like that, what we were told to go to school, get an education, get a job, get a house, get married, have kids, and then our kids do the same thing. Like I still remember at one point, a good few years ago, me and Eve started looking at a mortgage because again, it was actually because I hit 30, and there's this narrative that when you hit 30, you're meant to settle down. And like we went looking at mortgages, and then we were talking one day, and we're like, we don't want a mortgage. We don't want to sit here, you know. And like even for me, since 2018, I always knew I wanted to travel. I feel like my life is very normal and routine, but actually it's probably not. I've lived out of a suitcase most of the last 6 or 7 years, and you know, even if I look at me now, younger, if I was talking to an 18-year-old version of myself, imagine I said, yeah, I'd be 35, I'm not married, I don't have a house, I have no kids, I live out of a suitcase most of the last 6 years. You know, that 18-year-old's probably going to go, what went wrong in your life for you to end up like that? But that's where I think it's following what you want to do
Mm.
and what is drawing you. You'll be drawn towards certain things. And yeah, I think for me, honestly, traveling did a lot because it opened my mind and just to different cultures, different ways of living. When I travel, I see that people are doing this, you know. And when I first started online coaching, I mean, it wasn't a job, it wasn't a thing. So there was no blueprint. There was
Yeah.
very few. I was literally just I was searching the internet for like how do you do this damn thing, you know? And I found, funny enough, back in the day, I found a guy, John Goodman, who was kind of like a digital nomad at the time. I was like, I remember being fascinated. I was like, he was like, I live 6 months in Colombia and then I live a few months here and there. I was like, what? People do that. And he's like, and I work, like I run a business. And I was like, that's possible. And I was reading his books. And then he was actually the first person I remember. I was like, because I was working in the gym doing PT. And it was like, I had this vision then, be like, yeah, I want to travel and work. And then obviously I brought Eve on board. And 2018, then I left working on the gym floor, went full time online. So yeah, my advice for people is understand you don't, everybody can create their own path. And if you look at super, super successful people, they've had to create their own. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, that didn't exist. So
Mm.
there was no path for it. A lot of the biggest, Elon Musk, all those people, they all had to create their own path because it didn't exist. And we're living in a world now where the opportunities are endless and the world is changing. So, you know, you have people on OnlyFans making more money than doctors will ever even look at. You
Yeah.
know, that's just the world we live in. So be open-minded with possibilities of anything. And I think when you can see it, when you can look and go like, honestly, anything is possible, especially if you put your mind to it. And if you if you become passionate about something, nowadays, like, you can literally make a job and a career out of anything.
Yes, that's a very solid piece of advice. And I think it's funny just going back to the narrative that you were kind of talking about at the beginning, the get an education, get a job, get married, get kids. I could just hear my mother telling me this, as I'm growing up. And again, that's not against my mom or her parents. They had great intentions of doing that because that's all they kind of knew. But you chose to go down a different route. And I think it's obviously, for me hearing it's very inspiring because, as I said, you didn't have a blueprint or a framework. Online coaching was like this, what is this thing?
Yeah.
So for you, how do you feel about yourself that starting now, like you said, there's so many opportunities in the world today. The information, the level of coaching, the aspects of life that we can all tune into is like endless. Back then, 10 years ago, 2025, you started in 2015. How do you feel about yourself looking back? Like, how do you feel within yourself that I did this without any blueprint?
Looking back, I'll use Guzman's proud but not satisfied. There's a lot of failures, a lot of ups and downs with that. Wasn't a straight line. I think to add to that advice as well is the willingness to adapt and change, because everyone will have plans, but plans don't go to plan. And that's why, like, with the world we're living in now, opportunities come up so frequently that you don't expect, but you have to be willing to go and take them, or take that risk, make that decision. And if you're very in a box of, I have to get married, have kids, do this, you're not even going to look. You're going to let those opportunities just pass you by. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. A lot of people want to do that, and that's what they should do. But if you can understand that there is other outside opportunities, that you will be able to see, and it's so yeah, how do I feel? Yeah, I'm proud of it. It is, even looking back, I think it's very, I don't know what it is, this year is 10 years. There's something about a 10-year mark that makes me, like, very reflective on the whole process, and to feel like, we're about to go into a retreat. We just went to a house that was absolutely ridiculous. To go back in my head to 2015, when I was working at a little desk next to my bed, and my, like, goal for the year was to save up enough money for a laptop, to now we just went to a villa that was like something out of Beverly Hills. It is very, that type of thing actually kind of blows my mind, but I still don't feel like, I think part of me needs to actually take that in more, and be proud. And I think we said it, a lot of Irish people don't really, like, when you ask me that, I probably go proud, but yeah, I said,
Yeah,
but
no.
not, I can't just say, yes, I'm really proud. It's like, yeah, but I haven't done what he's done. No, so yeah, I probably need to appreciate it more, to be honest.
Yeah, and I was actually really happy because you first said that statement about Guzman, but then you went off then kind of not deflecting about yourself, and then I wanted to bring it back more to you, but you went there, but I think we'll come back to that. And I think it's important for people to listen to what you kind of said, about people having a plan. Plans never go to plan. It's like what Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And you talked about being adaptable. Like, over 10 years, you've no doubt had to adapt to so many different changing circumstances. And if we were to look at failure and success, would you say is the biggest lesson that you've taken from failure looking back in the last 10 years?
Failure is an interesting one. Honestly, it's where you learn the most. And I think I was definitely afraid of failing. Like, a lot of people have a big fear of failure. And it's, when you look at all successful people, failed, a lot of them multiple times. And it's like, you actually have to fail to succeed. It's a part of the process, because once you fail, you figure out what you did wrong and what you need to change. There's very rarely somebody that will set up a business or do something and the first time they get it right, you know? Doesn't, I don't know who. I don't know. Show me somebody that's done that. So yeah, and I think too many people sometimes look at it from a fixed thing of, like, I failed. But then what saying is, they're basically just justifying their own belief that, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, versus going, I failed. Okay, how can I succeed? what do I need to do, you know? So I think if you just look at failure as feedback, it's just giving you a message of like, hey, you need to do something different if you want different outcome. That way, for me as well, it's hard not to attach emotion to it because again, we all want to succeed. If you take it as part of the process and understand we're all going to fail, we're meant to. It's part of success. So that way, it's like it's nearly like you're not looking to fail, but it's like when you fail, you're like, yes, I've got that out of the way. If I can keep doing that, eventually I'm going to succeed. And you only need to succeed once. You know, like so many people have 10 businesses, 9 of them are crap. One of them super 100 times what they expected, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's something that obviously you've learned over your career is those lessons from failure. And I think a lot of what you're saying is going to come to mind. I think it's Will Smith's quote. It's like you have to get comfortable with failure and you have to seek failure. Failure is actually where all the lessons are. And like you said, trying not to attach the emotion behind it and trying to more so extract the lessons from it. And obviously, with belief systems and that, and you're talking about people who fail and attach that kind of their sense of self-worth to their identity in that, for them, it's like when they fail, it's like confirmation.
Yeah,
Like
it's
you said,
proven.
it's justified. It's like that confirmation bias. The brain just filters out everything else. It's just like, I am a failure rather than like, okay, I failed. How can I take the lessons from this? So then if you look at the other scale of it, you've been in business for 10 years. You're obviously very, very successful. For you as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, how do you measure growth? How do you measure success?
How do I measure it? Yeah, I suppose you have growth and success. You have like your objective. So you have like, you know, maybe your income. Does it increase, decrease? That's like very black and white. It's like if it does, you have if it's gone backwards, but then there's different measures of growth, I think, like internally, you know, because even in business, like you're not just, it's never it's like weight loss, right? It's never a linear path. You're never just going to completely go, you start and you never go downwards, you know, it's going to be up and down. Same with the scale, you're going to have weeks where it doesn't go down, whatever. So you can't attach yourself to just that outcome because you could actually achieve it, but you do it in a way that you actually end up like hating yourself or your life. For example, if you become really successful in business and you think you've achieved it, but along the way you burnt your relationships, everything else. It's like, oh yeah, I'm successful, but I have nothing. Everything that I actually wanted, I don't have because I burnt them all along the way to get this. Yeah, I think for me, I like to just, in a way, not get too caught up with those numbers and objective things, and more just look at like it's tattooed on me. It's like, am I better than yesterday? Growth is like, for me, continuous improvement. So it's like, is this podcast better than it was a year ago, the last one I did? And if I can just get 1% better, I'm happy. That's growth for me, you know.
I think that's actually really, really valuable to express, Coney, because I think money is very driven within us all and to the forefront of our minds when it comes to like jobs, roles. It's like people's like perspectives like, oh, how much money do you make? And are you making money? Are you not making money? Whereas, as you said, you're looking at it from such a broader perspective lens of like, am I getting better? Are my processes getting better? Are the people around me improving? Like you said, very much so driven by that motto of continuous improvement. And obviously you've done probably a bit of work yourself, and I know you have around money and moving away from that like scarcity mindset around money towards having an abundant mindset. It's I'm sure it's a challenging one, so it is. And as you said, I think you can probably talk a lot more into it. But I think it's really valuable for people to listen to that, to know that to not get fixated on the costs and the money flow if it's up, the profit margin is if it's down, and to more seek to, there's so many different areas of your business that you can actually look at to see, is there improvement there?
I think that's for life as well. It's like being outcome orientated versus process orientated. So again, outcome people are like, I have to lose 2 stone. What happens is that's 28 pounds. If I lose 27, then they're good enough because I didn't lose the 28. But the process of losing 27, nobody gives a shit if you're 193 or 192 pounds. Nobody else cares. But then because we're attached to this outcome, versus again the process is like now am I living a lifestyle that is kind of aligned with, and I've had those money lessons. I had to learn that, like I've been in mentorships before where again, everything is just about money. It's like, how much money do you make? And then it's like,
Yeah.
I found myself getting caught and like, oh, he's in here like half the time as me and he's making double, then you feel bad. I actually
Yes.
end up leaving because I'm like, what I realized anyway is like, I'm not money driven. It's not a high value of mine. It's actually like my mission. My mission is like the impact. So it's like, yeah, it was like I was getting caught in looking at the wrong metrics versus going, actually, are we making the impact that I want? This am I operating the way, am I living the way I want to live my
Yes.
life? And that's where you see people that have all the money in the world, but they're not happy. You see people like when I go to Bali, for example, they're some of the happiest people I've ever seen in my whole life. They have absolutely nothing. And that's where it gives you a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what you're talking about there is, what you're driven by and what are your needs. Is it your need in life to make money? And is this the route that you're deciding to go down? Whereas, your need is to make an impact in people's lives.
Mm.
Money is like a byproduct of that. And obviously, of course, you need money to help you along the way with that. But that's just, like you said, like a byproduct of what you want to do. You've obviously been in the fitness industry for a long time, and you see it go through different changes, different cycles, different chapters.
Seen a lot.
Yes, I would imagine so. But let's not look back on the past. Where do you see it going right now in the next like 5 years?
It's a big question. I really like this. It's very interesting. Yeah, what am I, 35, nearly 18 years, going on 18 years in fitness industry. So we've seen it a lot. We're
Mhm.
coming around, but the world, we're actually moving into a digital age. It's the rules of life are going to be different. AI, as we all know, I'm not going to say take over. It's going to become a big thing. But I feel with the fitness industry now, I'm going to give more where I predict it will go or where I want to take MC Future Fitness, which I believe is where it's going, is becoming an all-in-one solution. Because if you look at the health of humans on a big scale, it's not going the right direction. So what we are currently doing isn't working. And I think this is where AI, the digital age, can come in because and like even if you look at the fitness industry now, when you talk about someone in the fitness industry, the first thing people nearly ask is how many followers do they have? Not are they good at their job? Do they have
Yes.
experience? How long are they in it's like, how many followers do they have? Oh yeah, he has 100,000 followers. He's successful. They may not have ever worked with a client. They probably don't know anything. I'm not saying they don't, but there's a high likelihood. But I think there's an era of that, and then a lot of people, trust is going to be a big issue because a lot of people are kind of maybe having experiences where they're getting burned, or even with the medical doctors and all that, a lot of people are starting to question things more. They're not really happy with the answers that they're getting. So I feel like there's going to be trust issue, and how you gain people's trust, I think, is a personal branding. Everyone's looking for people, not so it's like people that they can actually trust. So you've already started to see it with a lot of big huge brands. The person is more important than the brand. Stephen Bartlett is bigger than the diary of a CEO. Chris Williamson is
Wow.
bigger than Modern Wisdom. So it's actually the person, because we're buying into that, and then it's like their solution is their company. So I
Okay.
feel like personal branding is going to be huge to build trust. People want to see a face now. They want to hear them. They don't want to just, and like with AI coming in, it's probably even more important because people are going to get to the point where you don't want to talk to a robot. And that's the thing with fitness, right? It's like all the information is out there, the actual science of everything. You can get it, but you can't replace personal touch, this communication between, well, far right now, you can't. Thoughts, feelings, behaviors, people are
Yeah.
complex. We want to be supported by another human. We want to feel that energy. And we don't just want a robot telling us what to do. So that's where I feel like this all-in-one solution. That's where we focus on training, nutrition, lifestyle, mindset. It's the integration of all these. That's why if you look at our team, we have a physio, nutritionist, personal trainer, psychotherapist, all in our team, and that's why I believe people are going to start looking for that more. I think it's already happening. Like, people are becoming more aware of these problems with effect social media is having, connection, mental health. So the awareness is getting better. The solutions aren't getting better yet. They're not there. But again, you have to become aware of it first. And that's what in a roundabout way. That's where I think the fitness industry is going. And it's, I suppose, why I feel like we're taking that direction. They become more health focused as well, which is also very good. Which I think I've seen phases of, like, the bodybuilding phase. High rocks is now, with CrossFit was a thing. High rocks. I feel like the holistic health focused approach is coming because a lot more people, we talk about ice baths, recovery centers, all this stuff. So it's all becoming, there's a lot more awareness around it. But I think in the future it's all going to be packaged together.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think it's really interesting for people to hear that, because I suppose people's perspective of thinking just, I want to lose some weight, there's so much more behind that. It's like a pyramid, underneath. And to be able to have that all in one, it's obviously something we're very proud of that we have at MC Future Fitness, is to have that total all in one integrated solution to be able to help people. It's really, really important, I think, for people to hear. I think we could talk a lot about that, and I can see obviously you're very passionate about obviously the fitness industry, what has been, where it is, and where it's going. But I just want one line from you to say, one bit of advice. Young coaches starting out right now, one line. What would you say to them?
One line.
Yes, we keep it short.
One line. What's coming up is like consistency beats perfection, but I'm not doing coaches, but that's our one line. I would say to them to a never ending process of learning and getting better at your craft. Because if you, out of all the years of doing everything I've studied, marketing, sales, everything, if you can get people results, that is still the thing. Word of mouth, referrals, doing a good job and being a good person. And like, people, when you're committed to continually getting better, people can see that, right? And it's like, it comes off you, and people are attracted to that. So that's what I would say, is just commit to a never ending process of getting better, because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yes.
Which is, I've learned that the hard way a few times.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's a never ending game. The goal isn't to finish the game, it's to keep playing.
Love it. Love it.
That wasn't one line, but
you kind of got there. But I think young coaches, if you're listening, put that up on your whiteboard right now.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me into my next question. Obviously, over the last couple of years, you've done inner work. You've worked with performance coaches, mentors, and all that. And right now, if you were to look back, what is one belief maybe that you thought was true that has changed over time?
I'm not good enough is a belief I had. It's weird. A lot of, maybe you'd call it, my success was actually driven out of scarcity. It's never feeling enough. The reason why I have maybe as much knowledge as I do is because I was terrified that someone would prove me wrong, or say I didn't know something. So before I could actually go out and say it, I was like, I have to know everything. So in a way, it served a purpose to get me to a certain point, because I was just so afraid, and nothing I did was ever good enough. So I never thought I was good enough coach. I never thought I was good enough to do any. And then obviously started doing inner work. I remember writing in my journal every day for over 18 months. It's like, I'm a world-class coach who transforms lives. And I was like, didn't believe it when I first started writing it. And it's like, fake it till you make it. 18 months had passed, and I was like, I don't need to write that in my journal anymore. And I can sit here and say I'm a world-class coach and we transform lives. So that belief it served its purpose, but it will only get you so far, and you can't keep going. Out of scarcity will only get you so far. It has to be abundance. You have to be pulled towards something, versus just trying to prove you're good enough. Just trying
Yeah.
to, everything coming from a place of fear of not being good enough.
Yeah, and thank you for being so vulnerable with that, because I think a lot of people will probably feel that, but again, probably afraid to say that
Mm.
they experience that belief system about not being good enough. And every single one of us has it. Again, to what level it's at will vary from person to person. But for you, when you said that statement, for me, I felt it. You know,
Hmm.
when you talk to people, you can really either feel if they believe what they're saying, or you can believe that it doesn't feel authentic behind that, you
Yeah.
know. And when you said that, there was just a realness to it, you know, that you firmly believe that, and it is coming from that place of abundance. And it's really powerful, I think, for you to share that, because I would imagine, and you see it online too, like a lot of coaches and that do experience that imposter syndrome,
Mm.
that like, I'm not a good coach, and how that might impact their level of coaching with clients. And again,
Just with that, even like that's how I first heard of that.
yeah,
Was I remember I was on a call, with, and there was a guy, Kirk, on it, who was actually a friend of mine now, but there was like 300 people in the call. He was like, just he was giving a training on something, but he was like, I'm world class coach, like, just, and I was like, he's just saying that in front of 300 other coaches, like, no, he was like the most. I was like, even if he wasn't, if he was lying, you believe what every word he said, because he spoke with such conviction. And then he said, that's why he was like, the reason I can say that is because I've wrote it in my journal every day for the last 5 years. I was like, I was thinking in my own head, I was like, couldn't say that. I'd be like, I'm a good coach. I'm okay at coaching. Like, so then I was like, right, there must be something in that. And then I suppose that's where that affirmation, you say it enough, you really train your brain to believe it. And then also something I did was find evidence. So again, I have folders of transformations, good things people are saying. So when you get that like feeling I'm not good enough, because it still comes up even now, you can like look at your evidence. You're like, oh yeah, it's just I'm just having that thought again. But really, so it's like you can meet that belief thought with like, no, actually, you have proof that you are good enough, that you are, So that's, I think, maybe a process for people with any belief is you you have to go through that, find evidence to support the new belief or why the
yes.
old belief is wrong.
Exactly. I think it's actually really important for people to understand too what you said. It's great saying affirmations, but essentially an affirmation without any action is just an empty statement. What you did was you said the affirmation, but then you went and backed it up by taking the action and then looking at the evidence that reconfirmed your new belief that I am good enough. Because that is the way our brain works,
Mm.
is any belief system that we do have, any type of information that's coming at us, it's literally filtering out everything that only just confirms that belief system. And that obviously where the awareness comes in and the internal work for you comes in.
Yeah.
When you're making big decisions in anything in life, what is it that comes to the forefront of your mind when you make big decisions?
First thing coming up for me is basically, is it aligned with my values? I know my values, and it's like when you know your values, you just ask yourself the question, okay, is this aligned with my values?
Mm.
So, for example, with that mortgage, that time, it's like one of my highest values, like freedom and travel. It's like,
Okay.
okay, I get a mortgage. My value is freedom and travel. Now I can't travel because I'm stuck in a mortgage. So it's like, okay, that's not actually, So then when you understand your values, you literally just cross them and go, okay, is this decision in line with my values? Yes. Okay, do it. So even for me, I'll give you an example. I find it difficult to spend money on myself on clothes, but I will invest like an obscene amount of money into personal development. Like that, you don't even have to consider it. And it's why, because personal development or continuous improvement is my highest value. Clothes, as you can see with this, it doesn't matter to me. So that's where, which sounds weird, struggle to buy 100 quid pair of runners. I put a grand into something for personal development in 5 seconds, But again, it's just that's because I know that decision is in line with my values.
And that essentially was what creates happiness, because people make decisions based off other people's values, or decisions based off things that they don't align with. And then they question themselves and wonder why I'm not happy. Like you said, you would have gotten the mortgage that time. Basically goes against every value that you have, two
Yeah.
biggest values. Like you would have felt very stuck, and then you would have resented
And again,
yourself
it
for
wasn't
making
mine.
that
It was
decision.
somebody else's values
Yes.
that you were meant to, you know.
To finish up, bringing it back to you, and with, I think my final question would be, and you kind of split this into two parts. I'm not sitting here. First part is Matt, whatever age you want to pick, younger self is sitting here. What do you think that you would say to him right now?
Younger. I would say two things: go for it, and don't be afraid. Have the courage to be yourself. That's what's coming up for me.
Okay. And if your older self was sitting here, what would you like to say to him?
Older than me now.
Yeah.
You're looking well. I'd like him to say to him, what would I say now to my older self? You did what you said you would.
Well,
Shake his hand.
I feel very emotional listening to that. I think that's a really good way of finishing the podcast. Thanks for sitting down with me today, Matt. I really enjoyed being the interviewer, and yeah, you all guys really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. It's been a interesting conversation. It's good actually to be put in the hot seat. I know how it feels now.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you found value in today's conversation, do me a favour. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or tag me on social media. Every share and review allows us to reach more people and bring you even more great content. Stay tuned for weekly episodes packed with insights to help you optimize your health, fitness, and mindset. And if you're ready to take things to the next level and join the MC Future Fitness community, click the link in the description, fill in the application, and let's get started. Thanks for tuning in.